Welcome to Right Fit Leader, a podcast from Alec Broadfoot and the Hire with Confidence team at VisionSpark. This is where visionaries, entrepreneurs, and leaders learn how to hire leaders, lead better, and build teams that last. Through expert insights, real client stories, and conversations with top leaders, you will hear how we find A players for your business. This is Right Fit Leader.
Welcome, everybody. Today we have John Vidosh. John is my COO and integrator. And if I have a self-managing company, it's because of John. So welcome, John.
Thanks, Alec. I appreciate you inviting me on today.
Yeah, you've been with us 4 years, and it's been a game changer to have an integrator. After all the years of placing integrators in other companies, I finally said I need to hire one, and glad I did. I always thought we were too small, and the dream was far away, and that was head trash. So I was able to hire you, and we've been able to grow and scale, and have had a wonderful ride. Today we're going to be talking about when visionaries, CEOs hire that number 2 leader, and this can go for any case where an owner leader hires another leader. And so we're really talking about ways to maximize their partnership or their position when they're with you, and also ways that minimize that. So we think of it, when you hire, we think of it as an investment, and you can actually do things to maximize that investment or minimize it. So John, we've all made hiring mistakes over the years. So before coming on VisionSpark, you may have made 1 or 2 hiring mistakes. Can you share with us maybe a hiring mistake you've made?
Yeah, so I made one once. So an organization that I worked at, we were getting ready to launch or start a new division. It was around moving and downsizing. And so we had some experience around moving, but not really the downsizing piece, and not really collecting or creating quotes around moving people. And so we looked out into the field of candidates that might be out there, and we found somebody that had a lot of experience around how do you quote a job and do those kinds of things. And from a piece of paper, he had lots of experience. He was quite capable of doing that stuff. And we hired on that gut, kind of the ticket or the skill set, as I would say, or the briefcase. And we hired pretty much strictly on that, didn't take anything else into consideration. And he helped teach us how to do those things. So there was some advantages there, but we pretty quickly realized that he just wasn't a fit for the culture. He didn't align with what we were trying to do, and it began to create all kinds of problems, erode morale. It just turned out to be a real nightmare, and we ended up letting him go. We did glean some knowledge from him, but I don't know if that was worth some of the other things that were outcomes of that, based on him not being a good culture fit.
When you think of the phrase right fit leader, what does that mean to you?
So I think someone who's the right fit leader, I think if that's the person that has a unique temperament, core values, they align with the why of the organization. And I think also that comes with that. So RPRS, right person, right seat. I think it all ties into that. So now you've found that person with the temperament, but I think you also need to make sure that they fit in the right seat. So the person that has the skill sets, the competencies, the capacity to excel, and leveraging their unique abilities. And I think when those two things come together, you've not only got someone who belongs in that role, but somebody who can deliver results.
Yeah, great. So let's talk about some, before we get into start talking about tendencies that minimize the investment of hiring a leader, perhaps share with the audience of an example of a client we had that maybe did the wrong thing when they hired a key leader.
Yeah, it's happened once or twice. And so we like to learn from our missteps. And so it's one of the things that we kind of talk about with clients, because I think sometimes they don't give it consideration, and they think, wow, just like Alec to a certain degree, like when you said, hey, I finally made the decision, I want to hire that next person. And it might be an integrator, but it might be some other key role in the organization. And they think, okay, that person's on staff. Now I can go away. I can take my long deserved and needed and put off, vacation. And they bring that person on, and then they might disappear on vacation for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And they come back and they wonder, oh, what has happened, right? Because they didn't have that initial kind of alignment to understand that. They just thought, okay, I've checked that box off and I'm ready to go. And so making sure that you don't do that it does take a little time to get that person that you've brought on board aligned with, whether it be an integrator for the whole company or just a department leader.
Yeah. And that's one of our tendencies that we've mentioned before, that minimize the investment. And that's abdication, right? Would you say that would be under the abdication category?
Right.
Yeah.
Delegate, don't abdicate.
Right. Yeah. And we've seen that time and time again. I had a friend who his business was here in Columbus, and he hired a salesperson, and this friend, he was responsible for 100% of his company's business. He was the rainmaker. He was the guy selling, and he decided that he wanted to move from Columbus to South Carolina. He hired a salesperson. He shared with them, here are the accounts. This is what you sell. Here's the pricing. He moved. And a few weeks later, he calls me up and said, hey, this person's not working out. I'm like, well, tell me what's going on. And he's like, she's just not selling. And I'm like, well, tell me more. And he proceeds to tell me, that she's not getting the results. And I said, I'm curious, how much time are you spending with this person? You're in South Carolina, they're here in Columbus. And he's like, Alec, and he said this like he was really proud. We spend 30 minutes every Friday talking about her week and how it went. And I said, this person's responsible for 100% of your revenue. He's like, yes. And I said, you're only spending 30 minutes a week. You need to be spending at least 2 hours a day with this person in their first week or two, and then an hour a day. And so it really hit him in the face, and he got the message. And so when he decided to hire again, he did the right way and really spent time onboarding them correctly and spending time with them. So that is the pinnacle of abdication. John, what's another tendency that minimizes the investment of this hire?
So I think if potentially the hiring manager, and in this case, if we're talking kind of visionary and integrator, if the visionary they continue to micromanage, that can definitely, it can slow innovation. It can stifle the rest of the team. I think that would slow. And a quick going back to, so we talked a little bit about abdication, and for those, that can be a slight of a nuanced line there. And so Patrick Lencioni has a great, I think, YouTube or a podcast about abdication versus delegation and kind of what that looks like and the difference of that. So if anyone wanted to get a little more information around that, they could do that.
Yeah, Patrick Lencioni, always great stuff.
Yeah,
always great stuff. Yeah. So like micromanagement, we see this with visionaries, and oftentimes I think it comes down to trust and control and fear. And so, we'll see visionaries who ultimately micromanage. And in that case, they probably hired the wrong person, or they're just not willing to let go. And, if they're micromanaging, they're wanting control. What's behind that control is fear. So what are they afraid of? Right. So we've seen that on the opposite side of abdication, I think, is micromanagement. Yeah.
And sometimes they're afraid of, are they going to lose control of the company? Are they going to lose their impact around that company? So, in an EOS, they talk about letting go of the vine, and that can be a tough thing. And I've seen situations where, visionaries say, okay, I'm ready to do this. And then when it comes to the rubber meets the road, they find that they're not quite as ready, and it is a little bit of a challenge for them. And I think, once again, those 2 hour a day meetings out of the gate to make sure that you have alignment, to make sure that whoever that person is that you're bringing on board, whatever that role is, that they know how the visionary wants the business run, and they can get alignment around that. I think that makes it easier. I don't know from your perspective, you might share how that worked for you, because I know we spent a lot of time together initially. And I don't know if that time we spent helped you cross that bridge, because I didn't see that with you. I didn't see abdication, but I certainly didn't see, reluctance to let go of the vine either.
Yeah, I think for me, I was just ready. If I had hired you 1 or 2 years ago, it may have been a little bit more on the micromanagement side than abdication. But by the time I hired you 4 years ago, I was ready for you to come in and run the company. And so, what I did is that after I decided to hire John, before he started, I started making a list of what were the top priorities, and I looked at the job description. And when you came in, I said, here's are the list of projects, and here's priority number one. And priority number one was a very important project that involved in getting really deep in the business. So you had your share of due diligence and meeting with the different people, and we talked a lot about what you were finding and what the next steps were and what the end result was going to look like. And I think it was the perfect project for you to get knee deep in VisionSpark.
And I think another thing for visionaries in particular to keep in mind is there will be some disruption, right? There was a little disruption. And I think probably some visionaries in the back of their mind, they know that's part of what's pushed them to this realization. It's like there are things that need to be handled or done or accomplished that aren't in my unique ability. And so I want someone to come in and do that, and then recognizing that they will. And in this case, I came in and did some of those things. And it was a change, a shift in some things. And there was a little disruption, but I think at the end of the day, it made us ready and stronger to take those next steps.
So let's talk about another tendency that minimizes that investment in hiring. And Gino Wickman is coined the phrase calling it a seagull visionary, right? And what does a seagull do? Flies over you, craps all over, and leaves. And so I think the one example I think of is there was a company here in Columbus. They were getting ready to transition to their second generation owner, and the first generation owner was getting ready to retire, and he brought in a president to run the company. And that president was actually mentoring his son. And so they were really, they were starting to make things, improving things, make things more efficient. The company would increase in sales and then profit. And then the first generation owner, I think he was bored, didn't know what to do, but he would come in and start changing things and telling people to do it this way, or why are you doing it this way? And he would start making changes to things. And then he would leave. And, it got to a point where they're like, say, please don't come in anymore. You're messing things up. Now, the moral of that story is that president did a great job mentoring the second generation. And that second generation business owner has done really well in taking that company over. But that's an example of a seagull visionary that is not very good, that would not help with onboarding a second in command effectively.
And I am quite confident that as they might do that or have that seagull approach, it's with the best intention. They think that they are moving the business in the right direction, but it may be a slight variation what second gen owner wants to do, right? Yep,
absolutely. Well, this fourth one I think I've been guilty of before, and we call that the helicopter visionary. And it's similar to a helicopter parent, where a helicopter visionary, for the most of the time they're pretty good, but then there's one particular issue or problem or project that they come in and they start micromanaging. They spend a lot of time with, and they start upsetting the apple cart. And it may be something dear to them. So it could be a people issue, it could be a project, could be research, could be a process. But they come in and they really micromanage it. I'm not talking about something that is in their wheelhouse, right? So if they're responsible for for selling and top line, or if they're responsible for new relationships or culture or new products or teaching the team, not talking about that. This would be something outside of their responsibilities, and probably in the, probably the number 2 leader's responsibility or manager responsibility. And so I call that the helicopter visionary. So I know I've been guilty of that. I think it's been a while though. I don't think
it has.
Yeah.
But once again, I think it goes to those weekly meetings, and I think, open and honest communication, right? So I think we have a pretty open and honest communication.
Mm-hmm.
I know everything I might tell you doesn't always land in the best place for you, but you listen, you process, and you respond appropriately, and we move forward, right? So, sometimes I say, Alec, let's dial it back, or Alec, I got this, but that doesn't happen very often.
No. And that's always music to me, my ears, when you say, I got this, right? And, I remember that one time we did that, I did that personal inventory, it's called Delegate and Elevate in EOS. But I wrote down the things that I was not good at and the things that kept me up at night. And you're like, Alec, I got this. That's my strength. That's what I'm good at. That's what I'm going to take care of. And that was just music to my ears, and that really helped me in letting go.
The whole gap overlap analysis.
Right. Yeah. All right, John, what's another one that we have seen?
So let's see, I think, so here's another thing that's very important. It goes back to kind of, hiring that person and then disappearing. That doesn't happen as often, but I will tell you, inconsistent meetings in general. So even if you don't hire that person and then, go on a 3-week vacation, the importance of setting up that cadence, spending that time together, and especially early on, because I can tell you from the receiving side is, your business, right? Or the hiring person knows their business. They've been doing it for quite some time. The person coming in doesn't know their business. And so the more quickly I can learn, or that person can learn, how do you want this done? What is important to you? Gaining that understanding helps me emulate that and replicate what you've already put into place. And I think it just makes everything so much smoother. But, just moving meetings around or not having them consistently, or just trying to squeeze something in, you just don't get that cadence, and it just takes that much longer. And there's more opportunity for missteps. There's more opportunity for, integrator disruption, because they're trying to make assumptions and they go down a path, and it's like, well, we never really talked about that, but he's not around. We never talked. So he or she, and so I'm going this direction. Oops, not what he wanted or she wanted.
Yeah. And we've seen that. We've seen visionaries that, they don't show up for their same page meeting, or, maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks. I know EOS recommends a monthly same page meeting. I recommend a weekly same page meeting. I think 3 of the 4 weeks in a month should be on tactical stuff. But that 4th meeting, it's better to look above the business, look big picture. And, I recommend that for any visionary integrator, second in command relationship. I think that's been really important for us, and it's gone really well, where you have really understood what I want and my wishes are. And so, that's essential. I think, it's like, you get a plant for your house. Maybe it's a tree outside your house, and you put it in the ground and you just decide not to water it. What's going to happen to that, right?
It'll wither and die.
Yeah, right. Okay, let's talk about some things that visionaries can do to maximize their relationship with their number 2. What are some things that visionaries can do?
So, one of the things that I think in most cases in visionaries' wheelhouse or skill sets, or where their unique abilities are, is to listen and to be curious. I mean, I will say I see that in you every single day. It's always the what if. Let's try this. What if we did this, right? So no loss of ideas or things to potentially try or tweak or adjust. So I think that's one of the things that from a visionary tendency standpoint is an important feature to have, and rely on your visionary for that.
Yeah. And we talked about open communication. I think it's really important for the visionary to promote a clear vision, right? So, clarity is kind, And so, it's important to be very clear. And I think oftentimes, visionaries will say, hey, we're heading this direction, then they switch and change gears. And so if it's very clear and like, here's our 1-year goal, 3-year goal, 5-year goal, 10-year goal, I think that's really important. What other things come to mind for visionaries?
Well, it's always been, I think, your primary role, and I think even EOS calls it out as one of the primary things that the visionary is responsible for, but is the culture. Mm-hmm. So yes, I'm a culture cheerleader. I emulate the culture, but I think at the end of the day, the visionary in this case truly drives that culture and says, hey, this is what we expect. This is what we want. This is who we are. And I know we had a great kind of core value and mission statement when I started, but it was lengthy, right? And so we tweaked it a year or so in, a year and a half in, once again at your direction, your guidance, and it was very similar to what we had before. So it's not like we threw it out the window and said let's start all over again. Mm-hmm. It built around those same things, but it was much more concise, precise. I think anybody in the organization could regurgitate it. They could tell us what it was.
Yeah. And one thing I like about you, and I like this for our other clients that also have really good integrators and second in commands, is that they encourage their visionary to stay in their unique ability. And, that's when we're happiest. And, I will have more energy, more joy, be more productive, make a bigger impact. So the more we can stay in our unique ability, the better it is for the business. As strategic coach, they talk about, there's 3 phases of business: to make it up, make it real, and make it recur. And so the visionary, it's really important for them to stay in that make it up space. And as soon as they start getting into that make it real and make it recur space, they're not in their unique ability. And right. So that's where they need to trust the team, their number 2 leader, so they can be making it real and making it recur.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. What else, John? What's another thing that visionaries can do to help with the relationship?
Well, we talked about so trust cuts both ways, right? Mm-hmm. So it can be lack of trust, can be a minimizer, but a lot of trust can be a maximizer. To trust that, hey, the team understands, they know where we're going, they see the true north, our GPS, right? In our mm-hmm. case, they see our GPS, they know our guiding direction. And so I trust that everyone's pulling in that same direction. So it can also be a maximizer.
Yeah, absolutely. And our GPS is our core values. And so GPS stands for we grow, we get people, and we serve. And so those are our 3 core values. So, and I think, and I would encourage other visionaries listening to really focus on your health and well-being. This is really important. Number 1, you're modeling to your team, but number 2, it's going to help you with being more productive. It's going to allow you to have great balance, but it's important for visionaries to focus on their health and well-being and not to feel guilty for taking time away, whether it's the gym or in my case, I play tennis 3 times a week, mostly evenings. But just that time is really important, and, making sure that you're fueling your body with good food and having good sleep, and we should do a study, John, on visionaries. How much sleep did they get before they hired their number 2?
That'd be interesting.
Afterwards, what's the quality of time? I'm sure they're getting more sleep. I bet you it's at least 30 minutes more.
Say what's your sleep score?
That's right. Last night it was pretty good, actually. So yeah. All right. Anything else that visionaries can do before we move on to what integrators can do to maximize?
I don't think so. We touched on some of the other things, just the core values, integrity, all that mm-hmm. kind of stuff. I think is very important to set the tone, set the cultural tone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you're an integrator. So what can integrators and number 2s and second in commands do to really, once they get on board and they're with their company, or even maybe they've been with their company 1 year, 2, 3, 5 years, what can they do to really maximize their relationship with their visionary?
Well, I think one of the things is to major in the majors, right? So as you sit down and you have all those meetings and discussions, you want those to pay off. You don't want them to just be meetings that you talk about things, right? Mm-hmm. So you want to understand what are those BHAGs, right? Those big, hairy, audacious goals. And so what are the majors, and how do we move through those things systematically to get things accomplished and to move us to the next level? So that's one of the things that I think is huge for an integrator to focus and concentrate on. And I think that kind of ties in with the company vision. So where are those goals? Because usually those goals are driving towards where the 3-year, 5-year. I know you mentioned that earlier, but where are those next steps that we're taking? What are those next milestones? And how do the majors get us there? And so one of the things that I think we kind of learned this phrase, or started thinking about this phrase, more recently. It's like, does this make the boat go faster, right?
Mm-hmm. Will it make the boat go faster?
Yeah. What will make the boat go faster? And will this make the boat go faster? And if it won't make the boat go faster, is it really a major? Is it really something that I want to focus on right now? Or is there something else that'll make the boat go faster?
And what's often music to my ears, and I think this is the case for other visionaries, is when you or other number 2 leaders, they focus on what's best for the business, right? So if you have an issue that you're deciding on, it's not what's best for you or what's best for your team, or it's what's best for the business. And you can even add what's best for the business long term is even better, because you can say, well, this is best short term, but it could really be damaging long term. But that's often music to my ears when you say, hey, this is best for the business.
Good.
Yeah. What else, John?
I think putting the business first. So not letting egos get in the way. So it's all about from a business perspective, it's all about what grows, what enhances the business. It's not about me. It's not about someone else on the team. It's more about the organization than it is one individual person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's really important that they model the core values, right? They're an ambassador of the core values, and as the number 2, they really need to model every core value really well. And that's important when companies are hiring their number 2, is to really make sure that they can model the core values. And we actually do that as part of our process when we work with clients, making sure that they hire the right number 2 or other leader positions, that they're able to model the core values.
Right. And we've gone so far in our organization, and I would encourage other organizations, if they don't do it, we created a program around that, right? So cultivating excellence. And so how do we instill the significance and the importance to the rest of the staff about, cultivating excellence, modeling what you want, following the core values and the culture of the organization. And so we push that out and instill that across the whole organization. And when everybody understands that, and when everybody has that same beacon of light that they're looking towards, it's so much better. The organization can get so much more done than if somebody's looking over here and somebody's looking over there. It's like, nope, we're all looking here.
Yeah, absolutely. North Star. Yeah. We talked about encouraging the visionary state and unique ability already. And, the main responsibility of the integrator, the second in command, the number 2 leader, COO, is to execute that business plan.
Yeah.
And that's how they're being held accountable. Are they achieving their top line revenue, their bottom line? Are they on track to hit their goals? Are they making sure that there's great customer service and the key employees are being retained? And are they hiring the right people and firing the wrong people? So it's really executing that business plan. And when an integrator does that really well, it's going to maximize that relationship.
And once again, EOS, but there's other operating systems out there. EOS has a real succinct way for you if you've never really put together. If you're a younger business, you've never really put together an official business plan, it kind of helps walk you through that and think about your short-term, your mid-term, and your long-term goals, and what are your unique abilities as an organization, what separates you from the rest. It hits all those key functions that are important components of a business plan, so that you now have something in writing. Because to have it all up here, sometimes it gets a little vague. Sometimes you forget. It's like, well, did we say this or did we say that? If you write it on paper, if it's locked and loaded on a piece of paper that everyone can refer to, you definitely have much greater success around hitting those milestones and those goals.
And along that point, John, it's important to get away every 90 days to do a quarterly planning session, whether that's with your EOS implementer or Pinnacle guide or scaling up coach, or maybe you do it yourself. But every 90 days, it's important to get away and are we on track? What would you grade us as a leadership team this quarter? What did we get our goals, our rocks completed? What should our rocks be going forward? And so, those days are super important, that you get away every 90 days to look, work on your business rather than in your business. And so getting out of the weeds and looking at the big picture, it's really important to do that. And it's really good to do it with a coach, someone outside the organization. So
an objective, extra set of eyes.
Yes. So, John, as we wrap up here, what is one piece of advice you'd give to anyone who wants to grow as a leader and build a strong team?
So grow as a leader, I think, and so I found this, what's been helpful for me is be a lifetime learner, always be learning. So, kind of the EOS, I managed people and been in businesses for a lot of years. I had different components. I've learned from a lot of different, Stephen Covey's, the Lencioni's, the whomever of the world, and learned a lot of those things, EOS. But when all that came around, it's like when I first heard of EOS, I dove into that head first. And what I think it did is a great job of pulling all of that together, not necessarily new concepts or new ideas, but pulled it all together. So I think being a lifelong learner, always being open to new and better things. I mean, just from a technology standpoint, it is evolving and changing so quickly. And if you don't want to become a dinosaur, right? So you get stuck in your ways because the dinosaurs went extinct. And if you can't grow and evolve with the environment around you and stay relevant, you're destined for not good things. And so being aware of those things, being open to new and different things, making sure that you leverage the strengths of your team is also very important, because as I tell people, I don't have all the best ideas. I have some ideas, some good ideas. I come up with some good ideas, but 10 brains, 20 brains thinking about things and how you might do things, or how you might refine things, or how you might be more competitive or gain that competitive advantage is much stronger. So I think relying on your team is also an important aspect.
Yeah, that's great advice, John. Well, thank you, everybody. Appreciate you listening in today. And we have some more episodes coming up here, so stay tuned. Thank you, John, for your time.
Thanks, Alec.
All right.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to Right Fit Leader, brought to you by VisionSpark. Have questions or ready to hire your right fit leader? Email us at discover@vision-spark.com. Until next time, remember VisionSpark is your go-to partner for finding leaders and building teams.